Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this news hour with the news. I'm Shifarao Lako, and do stay with us. Now, moving into the first story, the House of Federation began its second regular session of the sixth year of its parliamentary term in the House of the Assembly. The House began its meeting with a prayer for the innocent victims and continued the discussion by examining and approving the minutes of the first emergency meeting. At this meeting, it was stated that there is a lack of equitable access to infrastructure in the regions of Ethiopia. So in order to rectify this shortcoming, members of the House suggested a general population census in Ethiopia. In addition, information received from the House indicates that the House of Federation will discuss and approve a draft regulation for the implementation of Proclamation number 1261/2013, a limited subsidy budget, and a draft regulation for the fair distribution of federal infrastructure. The newly appointed spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ethiopia, Ambassador Males Alem, says the government of Ethiopia is ready to solve the border dispute with Sudan peacefully and amicably. The ambassador said this while briefing the media on different issues. The spokesperson also stated the efforts of the government of Ethiopia to encourage Ethiopian and people of Ethiopian origin in the diaspora to actively participate and play their share in pivotal issues of the nation. According to the ambassador, following the call of Prime Minister Abiy's initiative of the Eid to Eid Homecoming Challenge, various Ethiopians are coming home in large numbers. The government of Ethiopia, along with the International Organization for Migration, IOM, is to begin the repatriation of Ethiopians found in dire conditions.
ከሱዳን ጋር የነበረውን ችግር በተመለከተ በነገራችን ላይ ኢትዮጵያ የወሰደችው በሳልና ጥበብ የተሞላበት እርምጃ
With border dispute that exists between Ethiopia and Sudan, the government of Ethiopia has been striving to attack measures peacefully and amicably. The measure was through implementing the age-long dispute resolution mechanisms for an everlasting solution that is so enormous. It got us ruled that creating a table discussion opportunity was also immense. With the relations of the two brotherly nations, there was intervening of applying the problem-solving mechanism, though it has been resumed at the moment.
The spokesperson added that the government will repatriate some 12,000 Ethiopians from African and Middle Eastern countries as of yesterday. Have a listen to this.
From various African nations and the Middle East countries, the government has finalized to return more than 12,000 citizens to their homeland. Thus, it should be noted that Ethiopians from Tanzania, Malawi, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Djibouti, Sudan, Yemen and Oman will be repatriated in the shortest time possible in collaboration with the International Organization for Migration, IOM, and some other partners. So far, the government has been exerting efforts to repatriate about 102,000 Ethiopian citizens from Saudi Arabia to their homeland, went according to plan since March 2022 for the last 3 months.
Now, the 41st ordinary session of the African Union Executive Council kicked off in Lusaka, Zambia yesterday. An Ethiopian delegation led by Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Demeke Mekonnen is partaking in the session. Speaking at the opening session, Musa Faki Mahamat, chairperson of the African Union Commission, said tangible results are registered in scaling up economic ties on the continent. He stressed that the support of international partners and the private sector to the agricultural sector in Africa would be crucial to eradicate poverty and ensure food security. The implementation of institutional reforms is transforming the Union for the better, he said. The foreign minister of the host country, Zambia, said the African Union, in line with its theme of the year, ensuring food security and nutrition, should work on modernizing agriculture. He said Africa should invest in building peace to attract investment and ensure sustainable development.
We have set an ambitious target to plant 5 billion seedlings in this rainy season. This target is part of our larger goal of planting 20 billion trees during a 4-year period.
So we should take the positive things and follow his steps and plant as many trees as we can.
Welcome back. You're still watching Addis News Hour. The French ambassador to Ethiopia, Remy Maréchal, says his country is always committed to supporting Ethiopia's reform endeavors in various ways. In connection with the 125th year diplomatic relations between Ethiopia and France, the ambassador said France has a range of projects in Ethiopia besides the renovation of the National Palace and the Lalibela Rakhine churches. Kasaun Chane reports.
French ambassador to Ethiopia, Remy Maréchal, said his country is always ready to strengthen a such-long partnership with Ethiopia. Talking to ABC English, Ambassador Maréchal disclosed that the government of France has been deploying well-equipped engineers to renovate the civil works of the Ethiopian National Palace beside the renovation process of the UNESCO World Heritage Lalibela Rakhine Church.
So we are moving forward. If you go to the National Palace after the interview, you will see that workers are on the site and civil work has started. So this is one aspect. This is the most visible aspect because the palace is a huge facility, a huge building of more than 14 meters square. So this is the hard part of the project, but there's also a soft part, and we have mobilized the best expertise we have in France, which is the Versailles Palace, which was the National Palace turned into a museum, to share experience and expertise with the Ethiopian counterpart in order for them to be ready to recruit curators, management, and to be able to offer to the Ethiopian public, but also to foreign tourists, an experience while visiting the museum. So this is for the museum. For Lalibela churches, it's a bit more complex because Lalibela churches are part of the UNESCO World Heritage. So it means that any work to be started needs to have the agreement of UNESCO. So we've been working for the past 2 years to conduct technical studies in order to find the best solution for the preservation of the churches. So the request of the Ethiopian government, but also of the Orthodox Church and the Lalibela community, was to find an alternative solution to the existing shelters. So we have conducted studies. We have proposed a few months ago to all these stakeholders, so the government, the church and the Lalibela community, an alternative solution to the shelters. So it should be a bamboo canopy that will integrate in the landscape, that can be produced by Ethiopian, managed by Ethiopian, and this lasting solution would be fully in the end of Ethiopia.
He also underscored the government of French needs the support of the concerned bodies to easily undertake the renovation process of Lalibela, including UNESCO.
In order to start implementing this alternative preservation system, we need, at the request of UNESCO, to conduct 2 additional studies, which we will do soon. In the meantime, we have been working on the urgent restoration work, and if you go to Lalibela, you will find on the site a French team working with Ethiopian experts, with Ethiopian stone carver, with the people of Lalibela, to implement the first emergency restoration work. And I'm also glad to announce that in September, on the 23rd of September, we will inaugurate, together with the Minister of Tourism, an exhibition at the Entoto Park, a 3D exhibition on the Lalibela churches.
The ambassador further pinpointed that an exhibition about the Ethiopian Church of Lalibela renovation would be inaugurated by his embassy in Addis Ababa in the upcoming September, noting it is believed to play a significant role in aware the general public.
Now, the Ethiopian government has time and again expressed the need to end the conflict in the northern part of the country via a peace talk with the TPLF. While the TPLF presses ahead with its warmongering, some of its supporters and affiliate media outlets have proved how unchanged their leaders remain. TPLF affiliate media outlets such as Re'iyot have only been engaged in massive defamation and outrage against the Constitution. Goshimalisa has the following story.
The terrorist TPLF unleashed its barbarous attack on the northern command of the defense forces on November 4, 2020. Then the Ethiopian government was forced to ensure law and order. The international community and TPLF supporters have been accusing the Ethiopian government waging a war. After the law enforcement operation, the Ethiopian government declared the humanitarian truce, but the TPLF used the opportunity to invade the neighboring Afar and Amhara region. During its invasion, the TPLF destroyed hard-earned properties, public infrastructures, and committed grave humanitarian atrocities on women and elderly people. While all this happened, the international community gave little attention. It is to be recalled that the TPLF struck agreement with the mastermind of ethnic Amhara massacre in Wallagga, namely the Shene, so-called OLA. Re'iyot is one of the TPLF-affiliated media outlets working aggressively to paint a dark image of Ethiopia and its values. Although preaching justice for Tigray people and an end to the war, Re'iyot has shown how biased it has become to the TPLF leaders by interviewing the bigwigs of the TPLF and the so-called OLA. These terrorist leaders were presented as honorable guests and carefully picked questions were forwarded to them. Both Getachew Reda of the TPLF and Kumsa Diriba Akajal Mero ranted their innocence maneuverings through the questions to paint a dark picture of the Ethiopian government. The Ethiopian government has already named 7 teams led by Deputy Prime Minister Dammaqe Mokonnon to talk with the TPLF in a bid to end the 8-month bloody conflict in the country's north. Ethiopian Justice Minister Gedeon Timotheos said that the team of negotiators was authorized to talk with the TPLF, but with a clear directive that talks would be under the auspice of AU and in strict adherence to Ethiopia's sovereignty. But
the Executive Committee and the Central Committee of the Prosperity Party have deliberated upon in the previous week was concerning the option of the peaceful resolution of the conflict in the northern part of Ethiopia. The basis for the deliberation was a report submitted by a committee which has previously been established by the Executive Committee of the Prosperity Party. This committee had been established to explore the prospect of the peaceful resolution of the conflict.
The TPLF opted Kenya for peace talk than the AU. Some said this showed the TPLF is only buying time and not at all desirous to try the peace alternative.
TPLF has no interest at all in peace. Mind you, it does not represent anything within the Tigray proper, but it represents different interests internationally. As these international groups are, mind you, when you, for instance, put forward the discussion should be conducted within the African Union package. But the TPLF is suggesting that it should go to Kenya. Why? Because there are other interest groups who are negatively involved in this. So whatever the TPLF forwards, the Ethiopian government has to consistently avail itself for the peaceful process.
One of the founding members of the TPLF, Grazer Azion, said TPLF doesn't exist without war.
TPLF, of course, as its nature, it lives by creating enemies. It has to create enemies to stay in power. And that's why it has to create an assumed enemy and convey this to the people, and that the Tigrayan people are encircled by other forces, by enemies, and they have to fight all the time. They have to engage them in fighting all the time. This is the culture of TPLF and strategy of TPLF all the time. They cannot live without an enemy.
Riot has continued to defame the Ethiopian government and its officials. Disrespectful and deliberately provocative, the media outlet managed by journalist Theodros Tsagay, himself a Tigrayan. Riot has always been on the offensive, finding so much as silly pretexts to hurl all sorts of verbal assault on the government of Abiy Ahmed. The Ethiopian government has signed a pact with the UN to rebuild Tigray until parties reach permanent peace deal.
While Ethiopia has repeatedly made peaceful overtures to end the stalemate with the TPLF, this effort doesn't seem to be reciprocated by the armed group in Tigray. The director of the Bolzili School of International Affairs and a professor in Wilfrid Laurier University's Political Science Department, Anne Fitzgerald, has exposed the voices of Tigrayans living under the grip of the TPLF. Tigis Arnesa has compiled the following story.
From sending traditional mediators way ahead of the starting of the war in the north to declaring no less than 3 unilateral ceasefires and a declaration of unilateral humanitarian truce, the Ethiopian government has shown commitment to find a peaceful remedy to the conflict. However, Tigrayans under the terrorist TPLF are suffering under the dictatorial leadership, being forcibly recruited by the warmonger group. The commentary disclosed how the TPLF recruited minors as a soldier at the stake of humanitarian emergency rations, which is the weaponizing of aid. This clearly constitutes a war crime under international conventions. A sample set of Tigrayans interviewed indicated that there is a clear sign of a wide rift between ordinary Tigrayans and the TPLF leaders. The feedback from these sample interviewees provides evidence that the narratives echoed by the TPLF supporters living outside of Ethiopia does not align with the voice of Tigrayan communities on the ground. The analyst concluded that the empirical findings of the research could be used to inform a number of policy recommendations. The first is the need for a more supervised international distribution of humanitarian aid. This, says Gerald, will help to ensure that the aid distribution is depoliticized, prioritizing those individuals and groups in need as much as possible, and not to be conditional on family contribution to the fighting or on supporting the 1 in 5 network. The second policy recommendation is for the international community to support the technical and logistical requirements of a sufficiently in-depth and considered national dialogue process, one that represents a permissive space and a conducive environment for such discussions in Tigray.